What's going on, guys? BossFA6 here, back sharing a video, and today I'm here to do my NFL Week 8 2023 predictions. Oh boy, Week 7 was certainly something. Yeah, this whole year just feels like an acid trip. It really, really, really does. It's like, what the hell is this? What the hell are we watching? What is life? Are birds real? Is the NFL actually scripted? We actually don't know. What we do know is chaos is going to happen no matter what. So, yeah, week 7 finished up, and yeah, I'm not even going to try to think what the hell happened last week. So, without further ado, let's get into the Thursday night game that's happening tomorrow with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Buffalo Bills. Well, Tampa, you are no longer the number one seed or the first place in your division. They lost a very ugly game to the Falcons last week, where a game which I don't know how the Falcons managed to win that game, but it's Atlanta, and they'll continue to uncontrollably piss off their entire fan base no matter what. Baker Mayfield didn't really have that good of a game, nor did Chris Godwin or Chris Evans, but I don't know. I had Tampa. Tampa was doing really good. I think their offense is really solid, and I think they have a pretty solid defense. It's just they have been kind of hurt by injuries a little bit, but they just been losing some ugly games in my opinion. And speaking of ugly, Buffalo. What the hell was that? How did you lose to the Patriots, a team that is complete dog water this entire season, and you lost to them? I Oh my god, I don't get this team. I really don't. You lost to a team that has bullied you for what, almost 30 years? You guys should be going on a revenge tour at this point, but no, you lost. I don't get it. Thanks. You gave Bill Belichick his 300th career win behind George Halas and Don Shula. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Ugh. God, I want to love Buffalo, but stuff like that really pisses me off, and I'm starting to believe they're not looking like Super Bowl contenders. And if they keep going on the right track, they may be turning it around, but I just don't get it. I just don't get this team. With that being said, it's happening in Buffalo. I'm still going to have Buffalo win, but they better not be pulling off that kind of stuff again, because if they do, then oh boy, am I going to have to ruffle the feathers a little bit, if you will. So I have Buffalo winning, but don't ever do that again, please. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington Commanders. Philly came off a pretty impressive victory, albeit help from the refs, in their game against the Dolphins last week. Jalen Hurts, despite a forced fumble and an interception, he had a really good game. A.J. Brown had a really damn good game. And Julio Jones, returning Julio Jones, he still proves that he still got it. Their offense is starting to be a little shaky, but their defense is still really damn good too. But the big problem I have with last week's game is not only didn't live up to the expectations that I had, no penalties on the Eagles. Yeah, I'm not buying that. There was a blatant pass interference and a blatant face mask call that was never called. There was at least 4 different holding calls on like 8 separate occurrences. How do you not call those? I'm going to show you that the refs were terrible that game. And don't worry, I'm about to get into more. I'm about to get into more here in a little bit, but yeah, it was just chaos abound when it came to that game. Meanwhile, Washington, they had a pretty brutal loss to the Giants, only a 7-point loss. And I don't know, they may be moving on from Sam Howell in the near future. There's some players are starting to show their frustrations. And Ron Rivera might not be lasting this whole season. So I'm going to have Philly win. Their first encounter from a couple weeks ago was a really fun, entertaining game. But, I mean, the Eagles are just a way dominant team. So I have Philadelphia winning there. Next up, we have New Orleans Saints versus the Indianapolis Colts. No, this is not a Super Bowl 44 rematch, much due to the displeasure of many. We have a classic between Derek Carr and Gardner Minshew. Yeah, that's not really smart. Anyways, the Saints had a very heartbreaking loss to Jacksonville last week where they almost won at the very end, but stuff just didn't go their way. Derek Carr's really starting to not show himself. And it's not looking good. Not to mention Chris Olave got arrested over this past week for going over the speed limit. And yeah, the team's a complete shambles. And I thought this team on paper was actually going to do something this season. It turns out they're just going to be mediocre like they were last year. Meanwhile, the Colts, on the other hand, they got robbed of a game last week. I don't know how the hell, but somehow a game between Gardner Minshew and P.J. Walker was somehow a shootout. I don't understand that. Granted, going into the game, Deshaun Watson got taken out with an injury, and then P.J. Walker came in. And literally the only reason why Cleveland won the game, except for a few terrible calls, was Myles Garrett. He was that defense. That defense was holding on to that game the entire way through. And if I'm a Colts fan, I will be wanting heads for everyone because, good Lord, the refs screwed you guys over big time. With that being said, I have the Colts winning here. I'm sorry, just the Saints aren't going to be doing anything this season. And yes, Anthony Richardson is out with the season with the injury. He thankfully got successful shoulder surgery, so he'll be back next season. And hopefully they can develop a little more of their young core like Zach Moss and Ryan Pittman Jr. And, you know, their offense needs work and their defense needs work. But it's nice to see Jonathan Taylor get back into the game. So, win for everyone, but I'm having a Colts win here. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jacksonville came off a pretty impressive victory in New Orleans last week. Trevor Lawrence is still battling an injury, but he still did enough to help the team win. Travis Etienne is doing really good. Calvin Ridley still shockingly doing really solid, and Evan Ingram, all that stuff, Jamal Agnew. They're still doing good. It's just the division they're in is very, very, very weak. But they'll be able to prove it. They're 5-2 right now, even though you can argue they should be undefeated. But, beggars can't be choosers. With that being said, they're still a really solid team. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, what the hell was that game? I'm willing to bet Mike Tomlin was performing some weird voodoo magic against the Rams because you have Brett Maher missing kicks. You have the refs award you a down when you guys were nowhere near the yard line. And Matthew Stafford turning into the Matt Stafford of old, a.k.a. throwing terrible picks. I don't get it. This team should not have a 4-2 record. They should be 0-6 along with the Panthers if we're going to be completely real. They're pulling massive rabbits out of their ass, and it's really, really, really baffling. With that being said, I have Jacksonville winning. I'm sorry. Pittsburgh, they ain't going to pull the same shit twice. At least I don't think. But I have Jacksonville winning, and even if they lose, they'll bounce back because, again, they have a very weak division. But I have Jacksonville winning here. Speaking of the AFC South, we have the Houston Texans versus the Carolina Panthers. Texans and the Panthers, they're coming off of their bye week, and Texans are starting to sneakily be a wild card team if you think about it. Because C.J. Stroud, he's doing a damn good season. He's only had, 2 picks in the first 7 weeks. That's really damn good. That's really damn good. And not to mention, there's not a whole lot of big names standing out for the Texans, except for maybe Dameon Pierce and maybe Stingley Jr. But they're still, they're developing, they're still getting a new core. And the fact that they have a 3-3 record, that's honestly shocking the hell out of me. Meanwhile, the Panthers, they're tanking. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Bryce Young, God bless him, but he really needs help. He really, really, really needs help. But, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know what the Panthers are going to be doing. I'm having the Texans win. I think Texans is just an overall more balanced team. And the Panthers, they may be going 0-17. Who really knows? We all thought that was the Cardinals, but nope. Turned out that wasn't a deal, but I had the Texans winning here. Next up, we have an AFC East battle. We have the New England Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins. Like I said, the Patriots, they basically got lucky because the Bills decided to choke that game away. And Mac Jones actually had a pretty solid game for the first time in this whole season. Mike Gesicki is still showing that he could still go, despite the fact he may be retiring soon. And while they were missing key pieces like Christian Gonzalez and I think Bourne maybe suffered an injury too. This team's in shambles. This team's in massive shambles. This is the worst the Patriots have looked in a long time. And, yeah, bringing in Bill O'Brien probably wasn't the smartest idea. Meanwhile, you have the Dolphins, who came off of a pretty rough game against the Eagles. And people are saying they're overhyped, they're frauds, all that stuff. I'm not going to say that just yet. There's still division, in my personal opinion, only due to the fact that they're the best team in the AFC East right now. And, Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mostert, they're still doing good. They're still doing really damn good. They just struggled against the better team. And you could say, oh, well, they were all battling bad teams, and then they suffered against a good one. Yeah, we said that people aren't really saying that against the Cowboys now, are we? But with that being said, I have the Dolphins winning here. They can probably pick up the momentum back from what happened a couple days ago. And the Patriots, they're just waiting for the season to end in all honesty. But I have the Dolphins winning here. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tennessee Titans. The Falcons, again, they came off of a really odd victory against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bijan Robinson didn't play despite the fact he said he was having a headache. And I'm sorry, Desmond Ridder is not that guy. For the love of God, put in Tyler Heinicke. Because I'm sorry, Ridder is ass. He is complete ass. He has flashes, but my God, is he incredibly mid. Put in Heinicke, you'll win games more. Not to mention, Arthur Smith is going to give this fan base heart attacks. Meanwhile, the Titans, they came off of a bye week, but they ain't doing anything of note. I think Ryan Tannehill's done. He just can't do it anymore. Granted, you have Will Levis and Malik Willis, so you're basically saying which one sucks ass the least, but I digress. I'm going to have the Falcons win because the Titans are just terrible this year. But, I mean, the Titans win, okay, cool. But, yeah, I have the Falcons winning here. Ooh, we have an NFC North battle. We have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings pull off one of the biggest upsets of the year by shocking the hell out of us by beating the San Francisco 49ers. Kirk Cousins had the game of his life, essentially. Jordy Addison had a really damn good game, filling in for a hurt Justin Jefferson. And their defense just managed to get the Brock Purdy that entire game. And not to mention, their offense allowed 0 sacks on Kirk, which is pretty damn impressive considering who was battling the defense there. So, really impressive victory over the Vikings. Meanwhile, the Packers are just flowering up to obscurity here. They had a brutal loss to the Broncos, which I knew was going to happen because it's chaos. And it's just their O-line and their defense have been just struggling this entire year. And not to mention, what the hell happened to A.J. Dillon? I don't know what the hell happened to him, but he has just not been doing good. And, of course, the big elephant in the room, Jordan Love. Look, I'm not going to harp on the dude too much because it's his first full starter season. But, man, this dude's throwing some really, really bad picks. Like, we're talking David Carr levels of bad throws. Like, this dude is just chucking it in the air. And he's playing so hard to be play hero ball. Words to the wise. Dude, you're not Aaron Rodgers. You ain't going to be Aaron Rodgers if you keep doing stuff like that. Hell, Rodgers wasn't doing that until he was, 6, 7 years into his career? Quit doing that stuff, dude. You're going to be turning into the next Rex Grossman if you keep doing that. With that being said, I'm having the Vikings win. I know a lot of Packers fans are going to be hating that, the purple incarnation of Satan. But I'm sorry, the Vikings, they're slowly getting in there. They're slowly inching their way to a possible wild card round, even though they're still in football hell. The Packers are they're just bad this year. Like, this is the worst the Packers have looked. More so than last year. Like, they are looking worse than last year because at least there were some healthy players. They just look terrible this season. So I have the Vikings winning here. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams versus Dallas Cowboys. Rams, like I said, they came off of a brutal loss to the Steelers. Matt Stafford did look really off that whole game. But Puka Nacua, and especially Cooper Kupp, they did well, but not enough to not enough to win the game. And of course, Brett Maher missed a lot of kicks that game, and they eventually cut him. Meanwhile, Dallas, they're coming off their bye week, and yay, it's Dallas. Cool, Jerry land. Yay. Therefore, another insufferable fan base. I'm going to have Dallas win, much to the dismay of literally everyone. But, I mean, it's just, yeah. The Dallas is going to go into the playoffs and choke in the wild card or in the divisional round. It's going to be the same old song and dance. So, there you go there. All right, next up we have the Battle of New York, even though they're mainly from New Jersey. We have the New York Jets versus New York Giants. The Jets, they're coming off of their bye week, and they may be riding that momentum after beating the Eagles in the previous week. And, we'll just see how it goes. Meanwhile, the Giants, they came off of a pretty stellar victory against the Commanders. Tyrod Taylor's actually looking pretty solid. Like, he didn't look that bad, in all honesty. Darren Waller had himself a pretty good game. Saquon Barkley was looking good. The offense was looking a little bit better, and the defense, while they were struggling, they were looking a lot better. Not to mention Justin Pugh. He's really starting to come into his own. It's just the problem with the Giants is that they're going through a major identity crisis. Like, when they were under Daniel Jones, they were just struggling huge against games that, by all means, they really should have been, keeping competitive, but to each their own, I guess. This one's tough. I'm shockingly going to go with the Giants. I don't know. There's something about the Jets. I just don't trust Zach Wilson. I really don't. And not to mention the rumors of Aaron Rodgers maybe coming back sooner than later. Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what they would do here. But I'm going to go with the Giants. They may pull off an upset here, but it's the battle of two really mediocre teams this season. So I'm going to go with the Giants here. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns versus Seattle Seahawks. The Browns, like I said, had a really damn good game. An unexpected shootout with the Colts. Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players going to this day. He single-handedly carried that defense to a victory there. The Browns may honestly have the best defense in the AFC, if I'm going to be completely honest. And, Jerome Ford, he's no he's no Nick Chubb, but he's doing all right for what he's given. And, Kareem Hunt and all that stuff. But it's just, the team's been kind of odd this season, but they have been at the defensive showcase. And while you're going up against another defensive showcase in the Seattle Seahawks, they come off of a pretty forgettable game against the Cardinals. Geno Smith didn't do really anything too flashy, but Jake Boba's catch was really damn good in the end zone. And Devin Witherspoon, if that dude stays healthy for maybe the next 5 years, he's looking like a potential future Hall of Famer already. I mean, the dude's stats really speak for himself, and they're possibly crafting a Legion of Boom 2.0 if we really think about it. Who's going to win? I'm going to have to go with Seattle only because you're going up against P.J. Walker, and Walker's going to be as good as he is, but I don't know. Something about that defense for the Browns. This could be a defensive showcase. It really, really, really could be, but I'm going to go with Seattle only because I think they're more well-balanced team. Next up, we have an AFC West battle. We have the Kansas City Chiefs versus Denver Broncos. Hope to God it's not like the last game that they did. The Chiefs came off an impressive victory against the Chargers, and they look 6-1, but for some reason, in the back of my mind, I'm starting to have a little bit of questions for this team. Something about them just ain't clicking for me, in my personal opinion. I really think it could be due to the fact that maybe, they were having contract disputes and, some nagging injuries. But I don't know. Something about this team is a little fishy, if you ask me. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they came off of an ugly victory against the Packers. They are just not that good. They have one of the worst defenses of the league. And it's just ugly. Ugliness abound. Sorry, Brandon Perna. I'm eventually going to have to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't know. Broncos may pull off a victory here, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs here, and Taylor Swift is going to go wild. Though the real question is it really safe to put Patrick Mahomes' brother Jackson behind a woman? If you guys get it, then you get it. But I'm going with the Chiefs here. Ooh, next up, we have a bit of an 80s battle here. We have the Cincinnati Bengals versus San Francisco 49ers. The Bengals came off of their much-needed bye week. Hopefully, Joe Burrow's finally getting rested up and getting healthy. And they did come off of a victory over the Seahawks the week before, which was more of a defensive showcase at the very end. And hopefully that everyone's going to be healthy, especially, Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and especially Jamar Chase. Hopefully everything is starting to eventually click and they'll eventually turn their season around after having a disastrous first few weeks. Meanwhile, the 49ers, they can probably bounce back from an ugly loss from the Vikings. They were without Trent Williams. They were without Debo. CMC was back, but he still doesn't look 100% healthy. They just struggled big time against the Vikings. And I'm not going to call them frauds. They just had a really rough game. Now, who's going to win? That one's tough, only due to the fact that, I don't know. I'm going to have to go with San Fran only because I think their defense is just better. But I think Bengals may have a bit of a fight left in them, but I'm eventually going to have to go with the 49ers. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Ravens came off of a stellar victory against the Lions. Lamar Jackson had one of the best games, not only of the season, but of his entire career. He was flawless that entire game. Mark Andrews, OBJ had a pretty solid game as well. And that defense just laid waste to the Detroit offense. And it was just an offensive, it was just a massacre from start to finish. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, they're playing competitive. That much I'll say. Kyler Murray, I think, is going to be coming back either this week or next week. And, we'll have to see how he's doing after that ACL injury. But the Ravens, they're just running roughshod. And they're looking like the best team of the AFC, if you think about it. In all honesty, they really should be undefeated. But they had some pretty tacky losses to the Colts and to the Steelers. I'm having the Ravens win. This is probably going to be a massacre, if I'm going to be completely honest. But who knows? Maybe the Cardinals might be able to almost pull off a victory at the very end. But I'm going to have the Ravens win this one. And then, oh boy, nothing gets my crank harder than watching terrible defenses. The Sunday night game with the Chicago Bears versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Oh, God. Okay, the Bears pulled off a great win over the Raiders. They somehow made, let me see, checks notes. Tyson Bagent looked like Peyton Manning out there on the field. How the hell do you do that? The dude looked way better than Justin Fields could have done this past few weeks. It's honestly insane. And that probably goes to show you how terrible the Raiders are, but I digress. Meanwhile, the Chargers, they're just going through hell at this point, and they have been for the past 4 years. Don't turn Justin Herbert into another Matt Stafford or a Phillip Rivers, for the love of God, please. I'm having the Chargers win, but this is going to be a very ugly game. A very, very, very ugly game. In all honesty, this feels like a Thursday night football game, and I'm going to be completely honest. And then finally, for the Monday night game, we have the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Detroit Lions. I'm just going to be short, sweet, to the point. Lions are going to win this. They're going to bounce back from a pretty ugly loss they suffered from the Ravens. And the Raiders, they're just a complete hellhole at this point. Brian Hoyer had a terrible game, and then you put in Aiden O'Connell, and he was making it somewhat competent. But yeah, the Raiders, they're just terrible this season. There's no way thinking or buts about it. So, folks, that is it for my predictions. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought about this video. Make sure you guys leave a like, leave a comment, tap that big red subscribe button, and tap the bell so when I upload, you guys will be notified. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Most importantly, join the herd. Talk in the next video. Peace out.